In the last video, we reviewed definitions and examples of quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Now, let's look more closely at how we use these tools. Let's start with quoting. Here's an example. I recently read an article in Women's Wear Daily called As Bins Overflow, Consumers Demand More Options. It was written by Arthur Zakowicz, so when I want to share information from the article, it's important that I make sure it's accurate and credited to him. This is an excerpt from the article that I found particularly interesting, referring to D.S. Smith, a sustainable packaging manufacturer. It says, "The company also said shoppers are committed to recycling packages, but admit that they sometimes resort to bad habits when their at-home recycling bins are full." The survey was conducted in October and resulted in 1,000 respondents in the U.S. Now, if I'm writing about what consumers are reporting about their own recycling behavior, this is a great piece of evidence to use. But this information is already written pretty concisely, so I'm going to quote it directly. Here's how I'll do that. D.S. Smith surveyed 1,000 people in the U.S., many of whom reported that they sometimes resort to bad habits when their at-home recycling bins are full. Notice how I introduce the part that I'm quoting with a reference to the source of information, D.S. Smith's survey and its participants. Then I include a quotation mark to signal to my reader that the part coming up was taken from a source. You'll see that I only used part of the sentences that Zakowicz wrote because I was able to put the rest of the passage in my own words. By the way, it's okay to use only part of a sentence when it works best for the context of your writing, as long as you aren't changing its meaning by leaving out other information. Then I ended the sentence with another quotation mark to signal the end of the direct quotation. Now let's talk about paraphrasing. Here's an example of some text from the same Women's Wear Daily article. Zakowicz wrote, "The authors of the report said the waste generated in households that needs to be recycled has grown in part due to the rise in e-commerce that accelerated during the pandemic." In this passage, Zakowicz describes a likely explanation for the increase in recyclable waste according to a study by D.S. Smith. I want to paraphrase this information. After looking away from the text for a bit to make sure I didn't copy it too closely, here's what I came up with. According to Zakowicz, the study by D.S. Smith suggests that the growth of online shopping during the COVID-19 pandemic created more trash and recycling for consumers to dispose of, which is partially why we've seen an increase in waste from consumers' homes. The original meaning of the passage remains the same, but the wording is different. It might not be as concise as the original, but that's okay. If I'm a student, I can remember that I'm not a professional writer with an editor. The point here is for me to learn and to practice communicating what I learn as clearly as possible. Okay, now let's look at summarizing. To summarize this article, I might say, in his article, As Bins Overflow, Consumers Demand More Options, Arthur Zakowicz explores the results of a study by D.S. Smith, a manufacturer of sustainable packaging, regarding how consumers feel about recycling. Zakowicz reports that many consumers find they do not have enough space for all their recycling needs, so they end up putting recyclable materials in their regular trash bins. He also addresses the disparities between the amount of recycling in the U.S. compared to other countries, adding that this problem has been exacerbated by the rise of online shopping due to the COVID-19 pandemic. You'll notice that the subject of my sentences is almost always the author, Arthur Zakowicz. Instead of using language like the article says or it states, I'm using language that places the author at the forefront of the ideas. This is part of what we like to call looking at research as a conversation. Instead of using the article itself as a set of facts, we are viewing it as an extension of a real person. To learn more about this, check out our video called Research as a Conversation. Now that we've talked about quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing, it's important to remember that there isn't one right way to do all of this. We all have our own ways of thinking, speaking, and writing, and that's great. The goal is to do our very best to accurately represent the ideas of others. Check out the next video in this series to test your understanding of these tools. Remember, these are all things that we can work with you on at the Writing and Speaking Studio. To make an appointment, visit fit.mywconline.com or email writing_speaking@fitnyc.edu with any questions. We'll see you soon.